thank you everyone for being here. I know it's not quite the weekend just as yet, but thank you for coming out on a weeknight and joining us this evening. At Trifecta, we're trying to find a way to connect our portfolio companies in a more meaningful manner. We have the good fortune of working with founders that have had lots of years of experience, and Abhiraj is one of those shining examples of how far companies have come in the last 10 years. We met when I was actually in another avatar, in investing at early stage companies, and then we had the opportunity to do some venture debt, and we've stayed friends since then, and we have a standing sort of breakfast or lunch at Trident once a quarter, but he was kind enough to take the time this evening. So everyone knows Abhiraj, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about his background, but I am going to ask him some questions that help us understand, how he's built the organization that he's built, and then of course we'll leave some time for discussion at the end. If you don't mind just closing that door. Yeah, can you guys hear me now? Is it better? Lift it up. All right, let me just lift it up. Is that better now? No? Not so good? कहाँ पे लगाएं? इधर? Okay, I'll just speak a little louder. How about that? Okay, so from IIT, IIM to consulting, and then to a startup. What made you take the entrepreneurial plunge?
Thank you, Rahul, for having me. I guess I just wanted to do more with my life, like all of us here. Somewhere throughout IIT and IIM Ahmedabad, I was constantly thinking about what I could do on my own. Final year of IIM Ahmedabad, my co-founder Varun and we actually spent some time looking at a few ideas. We came quite close to an edtech idea, never quite got around to launching it. But I think the kernel of entrepreneurship was sown then, and the 3 years at BCG, I don't remember at any point in time, any weekend when we wouldn't have chatted about what we can do together. So it was, for me, I think personally it was a question of when, not if. You also tend to tell yourself a lot of, we're very good at lying to ourselves.
Yeah.
So your lies become your truth. So one of the lies that I told myself was that I'm not quitting because I don't have a good idea. And the day I get a good idea, I'll quit. Eventually I realized that, I'm working for somebody else for 14 hours a day, and the paycheck is hitting the bank account every month. So when I start thinking about ideas for 14 hours a day and there's no paycheck hitting the bank account, I'll get a good idea.
Yeah, true.
So then decided to put in my papers. Didn't have much idea what I'm going to do, but somewhere I think there was a sense of we'll figure it out. Youth is always kind.
Yeah.
So I was 26 then. Varun was with me, and then we got started.
So today we have a fashionable term, founder market fit.
Yeah.
I was just curious at that time, as you thought about the gamut of ideas, the idea of being a quality service provider experience.
Yeah.
What was the kind of root cause there, or what drove you towards picking this?
This wasn't our first idea. Our first idea was actually in Alok's space. It was a travel startup. And the idea was to provide entertainment solutions on buses, trains, and planes. And I'm very serious, by the way. The company was called Cinema Box. We went fairly far. We had done zero research about the market because, that's what consultants do.
Yes.
We're entrepreneurs now. So zero research. It was an idea that was born out of a personal pain point. So we felt this is how, ideas come to you as well. And a huge market. So many people who are traveling have no entertainment solutions. So we launched a product, very naive. We were getting meetings with everybody because people were kind to give us meetings. So we met the CEO of a leading airline. I wouldn't take his name. He was super excited by it, and at some point in the discussion, he told us that all this is fine, but what are you going to do about the Wi-Fi ban in the Indian skies? And it was in that moment that we realized that there is a Wi-Fi ban in the Indian skies. So that was how naive we were. So we were like, oh, we will come back to you on that. So basically, airlines was gone. We tried to sell to Indian Railways. We went all the way to the railway board. Quickly realized we're not going to make much headway here. So the TAM actually quickly shrunk to air-conditioned buses, because I also tried to sell this to Haryana Roadways non-AC buses, and that was a disaster. So the TAM from all these people traveling shrunk to air-conditioned buses, and it was a nightmare selling to these bus operators, but we did manage to get some headway there. So we sold to a couple of operators who were kind enough. But I think the biggest learning in that startup was that we really cared about our product, but nobody else did. So the bus operator said, look, this is not my top 10 pain points in life, right? Like, I'm worried about how do I get customers, drivers, petrol is going up. Like, how will customers entertain themselves for the 3 hours of the bus ride? Not my top priority. For the content, so we were also aggregating content from the content aggregators. This was not one of the top 10 monetization channels for them. And even for the customer, like, you're going to travel a few times a year, if you can read a book. So lots of things were wrong with that idea. We were on the wrong side of technology as well, because our thesis was that this is how things will always be. Thankfully, we were able to get out of that idea soon enough. We did spend some time and some money, so that it was a little bit of a truth slap on our face. But thankfully, objectivity prevailed soon enough, and then we quit that idea. And that's when by then Raghav, our third co-founder, had already joined us. He'd also shut down one company, and the three of us then started to think about what we could do together. Few things we were very clear about. One was, I think, with Raghav coming on board, the good part was that he started to bring to us appreciation of how technology could change things. So I had met Raghav right at the beginning of starting Cinema Box, and one of the things he kept telling us was, this is not a technology company, you're fooling yourselves, this is a tech services play. So when we shut that down, I reached back to him. He had shut down his company, and I said, why don't you come on board? And then he really started to push our thinking into saying, look, if we're going to build a company, technology has to be at the heart of the company. So let's start looking at ideas and spaces where technology can be the fundamental disruptor. And our experience between Varun and me was, this time the TAM has to be large. Like, it can't be a small problem. So we explored a few spaces, very quickly started to gravitate towards services. It was, again, somewhat of a personal pain point, but the consumer pain point was very evident. I had launched this Facebook group called, literally didn't even think of a good name, it was called Find Trusted Service Professionals in Delhi. And that Facebook group organically grew to like 900 people in 3 weeks. And then the conversations with the service professional side, I think that made it far more clear to us that this was not just a consumer pain point. This was a broken industry on the supply side as well. That was it. We just jumped in after that.
So, we always talk about India as being a trust deficit economy, right? Which means people try and optimize every transaction because they don't know if they're going to be around tomorrow.
Yep.
You were attacking kind of a big trust issue because you had to trust your service provider, you had to give the consumer the trust to let somebody into their home. How did you think about approaching that, just at understanding consumer behavior and figuring out how to attack trust?
Honestly, it was a long, meandering process, Rahul. I think off the bat, we did not have product market fit. So we approached the market with a view that sort of asset light, technology only play, is good enough. And again, that was naive of us. We ended up scaling our first version of Urban Company quite rapidly. Pure vanilla metrics, right? No real metrics. So at the end of year one, I remember we had raised something like $36 million of capital across successive rounds. We were valued at 100 million. We had some 300 people loitering around in the company, doing some stuff. We had zero revenue, no product market fit.
It's like 2021.
Yeah, it's like there's the trailer of 2021, 2015. And there was this nagging feeling that, we're building and scaling something that actually is not loved by consumers. I actually brought it up in one of the board meetings. I said, look, I don't think we have product market fit. To which I was told that, no, you do. Don't worry. You do.
The VC is telling you have it. You have it.
So, but I think the nagging feeling doesn't leave you, so you have to do something about it. So towards the end of year one, we set aside a small team and we said, okay, let's just go deep into one vertical. And we were in something like 70, 80 verticals at that point in time. We're only in 8, 9 verticals today. So it was like we did everything wrong to start with, except the fundraise. That we got right. So we said, okay, let's get a small team and at least get to understand one service business, because if we're in the business of services, we can't operate at this very high level. And that category for us was beauty services for women at home. The good decision we made was, we said, if we're going to get into this, we're going to go the full 9 yards. Let's not go half pregnant in trying to solve the consumer's problem and say, this is the type of company we are, so we won't do this or we won't do that. And the next, call it 1 year, I think we really understood the nuts and bolts of that business. We realized very quickly that we had to do training and we had to set up infrastructure for training. We did that. We realized very quickly that we had to source products and tools. We realized that we had to provide financing solutions for these service professionals. We had to take care of their insurances. So a lot of building blocks started to get come into place during that 1 year. And the remarkable thing that happened at the end of that 1 year, which was basically 2 years into our journey, was beauty was the only category which had some semblance of product market fit. So you had good smiling consumer cohorts in that category. On the supply side, we had beauticians showing up at our office organically every day, saying that, I've heard that I can make 50,000-60,000 rupees a month in this company, I want to join it. And all our consumer brand, and we were doing a lot of marketing for these 70 other categories. Our consumer brand we started being known as a beauty app. So I think that's when we realized that, okay, this is what product market fit actually looks like. At that point in time, our other business, because we were pumping, marketing into it, it had reached reasonable scale. So we were doing about 3.5-4 crores in revenue a month, of which more than half was coming from this sort of light touch mode. So we had to take a tough call, which is, do we continue to straddle two boats, or do we put all our energy into the full stack model? We decided to do the latter, which I think was a company defining decision in hindsight, and never look back after that. And then one after the other, we started launching more home categories, which were launched in a full stack fashion.
It feels like in India there's infinite demand. If you can crack supply, oftentimes that's the larger problem. But I'm just curious, as you think about, in hindsight now, you've been at it for some time, what are some of the defining principles that you think you're running the company by?
That's actually a really good question. I think I'll have to gravitate towards our values, and we have a few values that we hold very dearly. One of the values that that we try to live by is customer obsession. And while you're right that there is a lot of demand in India, I think it's pretty hard to build a product or a service that sort of truly has very, very high quality PMF.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even say for urban company, like a lot of our services have that. And if I look back at consumer internet in India, I can count maybe most certainly on both hands, but potentially even on one hand, number of companies that have that truly defining PMF. And I think companies which have that truly defining PMF, they just grow their TAMs dramatically. I think that needs a certain degree of customer obsession and thinking backwards from the consumer, not just on convenience and quality, but also very importantly on value. And there's a fairly, value conscious consumer. So beyond the top 5 to 10 million households, if you really want to build a large company, you have to deliver tremendous value. So it's a complex cocktail of quality, convenience, and value that has to come together. It's not easy, but let me give you an example and tell you how we think about it. So we've been in the business of cleaning for the last 6 to 7 years, ever since we made that pivot. And we do professional cleaning of your washrooms, your homes, your sofas, etc. And by the way, our services are on the professional cleaning side are fairly expensive. I would not consider them to be cheap by any stretch of imagination. And consequently, they've hit a certain scale. It's the largest category on the platform today, but they haven't really broken out. And this is a problem that we've been grappling with for the last year or so, as to why is it that, so many homes in India are getting cleaning services done, but on the professional cleaning side, it hasn't really taken off beyond a certain point. We were also aware that almost every Indian middle class household will avail daily cleaning in some shape and form.
Yeah.
But that TAM, which is gigantic, it's much larger than the entire home service TAM that we address, has historically been unaddressable for us for a variety of reasons and challenges. Last year we finally threw in the towel and we said, no, we have to, if we want to be 10x larger in the cleaning business, we have to somehow get into this daily/weekly cleaning TAM. And we started speaking to a lot of our consumers. Our bathroom cleaning service was really taking off. So when we started speaking to consumers, what they told us was that, look, either my maidservant is not doing a good job with the washrooms, or she doesn't want to clean the washrooms for a variety of cultural reasons, or she doubles up as a cook, so I don't want her to clean the washrooms, etc., etc. And we realized that there's a sub-TAM that is sitting within the daily cleaning TAM. It's actually quite large and sizable. It's been right in front of our eyes. We haven't looked at it. However, I cannot expect the consumers to pay 400 to 500 rupees per bathroom per clean, which is what we charge for our professional cleaning, if they have to get their washrooms cleaned every week or multiple times a week. So we had to rework that entire supply chain. It can only work if you go down to the apartment complex level. It cannot work if you're at a hyperlocal level, because you have to remove every possible inefficiency in the system. There has to be zero travel. There has to be zero time spent between jobs. Washrooms have to have the same layout so that there's no learning cost for the service professional between washrooms. They have to be kept cleaner every week so the time to clean comes down. So you basically shave off so many levels of inefficiency. And for the first time, we think, after all these years, that we've kind of found a winner PMF. I would not say that for pretty much any service of UC. We expect this to be like our largest service category in the next year or so. And the reason is, when you have that true winner, the market pulls.
Yeah.
The only thing you're scampering right now, the only thing, this team that I have, zero marketing dollars, the only thing they're doing is getting supply onboarded faster than they can. So why could we not see it all these years? We've really thought deeply about it. It's not easy. It's not easy to. I guess I can find some solace in saying that, like, it requires a very detailed level of consumer listening and consumer obsession. All of us will say that we're consumer obsessed companies, but to truly crack, that near perfect PMF, which the market starts to pull in a market like India, it requires a degree of consumer empathy and consumer listening that is of another order. Because consumers will tell you something else,
Yeah.
and they'll believe their real reasons are something else, and they'll end up doing something else, right? So it's like a multi-layer problem, and you have to really unpeel the onion to understand the heart of it.
Yeah. And look, it's a very diverse market, and things that may work in certain regions
Correct.
may not work in others. I guess people here also are trying to move from founder to core team to then a larger organization. How do you think you can instill this maniacal focus on customer first in a larger organization? Because as your organization has grown, you've added people, removed people, you also have this dynamic of a large number of service providers that have a very different set of needs. How do you think about creating that common culture in the organization?
I guess it helps to try to be lean as a starting point. I think any culture problem, in my view, your culture problems grow geometrically with scale, not linearly. So if you double your scale, I think your culture problems quadruple. So starting point is to remain lean. I don't think we're lean at all.
How big are you? Just a core headcount?
All our employees on our payroll is 1,069. So that's a reasonably sizable number. Although for a lot of companies of our scale, you will find many, many more thousands of people. So one very, very important thing for me is fewer people, fewer levels. Between the CEO and the last mile. More reportings. Each of us will have 7, 8, 9 people, 10 people who report to us. I think that's important. The second is, honestly, I guess there's no substitute for spending time with customers and spending time on the field and in the markets. The first half of today, I was with an electrician.
And your one down and two down also have to do that?
Everybody has to do that. There's no substitute. We call it consumer license. Basically, you only get the license to speak if you've done, like, anybody who starts in a category has to at least meet like 50 customers in the native environment when the service is being done, speak with them. And even now, like, my own teams will tell me when I'm out of depth and I haven't spent the time in the field understanding consumers that you don't have the license to speak. So I think spending time, like, there's no substitute to spending time with consumers. All of us have consumer businesses, so that's actually quite easy for us. I think what's harder is, as I said, to understand consumers, because consumers will, it's not so easy to get the truth out of consumers. On the culture piece, one of the ways in which we've structured the organization is because we have multiple service categories. We have teams which are actually quite, and this is not just true for our service categories, this is also true for our product and tech business, for our marketing teams. Actually, our entire organization is, all the 1,000 people can be divided into small pods of 5 to 7 people. And that's it. It's never more than that. Each pod has a very clear charter. They define their own vision. They define their own roadmap. And they own it. and ownership is a very, very central theme at Urban Company. And I think we've made several mistakes along the way, but one of the things I'm fairly proud of is the quality of talent that we have and the talent density that we have and the talent that we've been able to retain at Urban Company has been phenomenal. And I think a large part of it is because that talent feels and operates like owners. And we actually mostly don't lose talent to any other startups. Most of our talent, when they leave, they start companies. And we've had probably 15 to 20 founders, 10 plus like VC funded companies out of Urban Company. I think ownership is fairly central element of that, where people really have to sort of own the problem statement and own the charter.
Yeah.
And that goes down like 2-3 levels into the org. It doesn't go down all the way to the last mile, but it certainly goes down 2-3 levels.
So you took a decision a couple of
While
years
we
ago.
also don't hire from other startups.
Okay.
So we would hire from like big firms. We're okay to hire from HUL, ITC, McKinsey, BCG, but we typically, I mean, there are exceptions to the rule, but we typically don't hire from other startups.
Got it. A couple of years ago, you decided to take the proposition beyond India. It's a big market, PMF is hard. You decided to launch in other parts of the world. How's that going? And would you encourage other Indian consumer-facing businesses to try and win other markets?
Short answer to the second question is no. To be honest, it's going okay.
Yeah.
We're in UAE, Saudi, and Singapore. Good, profitable markets, not as large as India. But see, basically, all my time is going into India right now.
Yeah.
So, hindsight is always 20/20 vision, but I think India is large enough. We all have to just nail India first, and then like worry about conquering the world.
Yeah.
We are I think we're at the start of like India's potential truly unpacking. So the last thing any of us wants is that our attention is going into these other markets, and before you know it, some 21-year-old kid is coming and launching his beauty app, which is only India focused, and sort of pulling the carpet below you. So I think we did get carried away a bit. We raised a lot of capital in 2020, 2021. We did get carried away. Launched a few markets. Actually, they're not doing very badly.
Yeah.
In UAE, we're the largest home services app in UAE. It's at the cusp of profitability. So thankfully we did go crazy. We launched Australia as well, but we shut that down in time. So we all make mistakes. We learn from our mistakes. I'd say India. Just stay focused on India. It's large enough.
You've seen a few cycles as well. You've also been the master of fundraising. You always raise a year before, and you always peg it to a year later valuation. So what is the secret of raising money, and how do you think founders should pace themselves on fundraising?
The secret is there's no secret. I think I've had a very simple philosophy. Whenever I have 18 to 24 months of capital in the bank, and now we're past that because now India business is broken even, so we have infinite runway. But in the past, when building Urban Company, when I think of runway, at the 18 to 24 month point, where I feel like, okay, now I have only 18 months of runway, I would basically go and raise my next round. Which is a little bit contrary to popular wisdom, which says, raise for 18 to 24 months. But I just feel like it gave me peace of mind to be able to build. When COVID happens, you are not scampering, trying to figure out, you can take bold, aggressive bets. And if you really think about it, it adds maybe one extra round to your entire fundraising journey. So to that extent, you dilute one incremental round's worth of dilution. But I would argue that because you raise from a position of strength in every round, because you don't need the money, you actually more than make up for that dilution in every round. So I think that's been the philosophy. I still think we've ended up raising more than we should have, and we could have owned more of the company I would certainly like to have owned more of the company than I do. But it's not very bad. I mean, between the founders and the ESOP pool, we have about 35%.
Okay.
Could have had more, but we'll have to make do with what we have.
Being a founder is a pretty lonely job. Who do you go to for advice?
I have now a very, very good. So I'll start with the board and then come to the team. So I have now a very good set of 3 independent board members. All 3 of them, one of the best decisions to bring them on board. We brought them on board about a couple of years back. Irina Vittal is one of our independent board members. She was working with me for about 3 years prior to bringing her on the board, so about 5 years in total.
Irina was my first boss in 1995.
Oh, okay.
So we go back a few years.
Yeah. Irina's not.
She's amazing.
She's amazing. She's also tough, but
Yeah.
she's amazing. She keeps you very honest. So she's definitely one of the go-to people. Ashish Gupta, who started Helion, is also one of our independent board members. And he was never an investor in Urban Company, but I had met him. I was really fond of him. He's an incredible human being. For those of you who've met him, and I really wanted him to be on the board, and he's remarkable. I mean, truly outstanding individual, very truth-seeking. So he's definitely somebody as well. From the investor group, we have a bunch of really good investors, but Ravi from Elevation has been on our board for 8 to 9 years, and again, a man of few words, but every time I've been really stuck, I've gone to him, and he will make the very complex pieces of the puzzle also look simple. So I remember when COVID hit, lockdowns, I went to him and I spoke to him, and he said, "Look, you're going to try to do a bunch of things for the next 3 months. It's absolutely pointless. It'll just be like stupid entropy in the system. Give your team a 3-month break, and then come back after 3 months, and business will be fine, right? But you try to do anything, funny in the lockdown, nothing's going to happen." And obviously, we didn't listen to him because we have to do something with our time. But it exactly played out that way, and so I think So he's there. I have 2 co-founders, Varun and Raghav. Incredible set of founders. Couldn't have asked for a better set of founders. Varun in particular, I think, given that both of us go back almost 20 years, that relationship is more than like a brother. I also look up to him. I think he's a role model of sorts in life. Very disciplined. I haven't seen him lose his cool, and I've known him 19 and a half years now. I haven't seen him ever lose his cool in any situation. So very calm and composed character, and true sort of rock of the company. I think these people, my wife for sure, she's also somebody that I've known for very long time, and and she's, by the way, amazing grounding factor in life. So
it's good you brought up family, because I think a lot of us end up putting a lot of burden on the family. Anything you would have done differently in this journey?
No, I think my wife was a very good balancing factor in terms of sort of keeping things grounded, keeping things simple. I think the only thing I would have done somewhat differently was I think I did ignore my health a bit for the first 3-4 years of UC, sleep in particular. And I think that has a very direct impact on just your ability to operate at your best self. And once you realize that it's this is all that you have to do with your life, it's not a sprint to some milestone. This is it. This is your life, right? So then you have to design your life in a way that you are able to bring your best version every day. And I think health and sleep and family, they're very important. So in that sense, there's now little space for other things. So other things get deprioritized. I have consciously deprioritized socializing, partying, all of that has taken a backseat. But it has been replaced with, spending time with family, with kid, focusing on fitness, and then work.
So I'm going off script a little bit.
Sure.
But what does success mean to you?
I spent a fair amount of time earlier this year thinking about it, and I think I would like Urban Company to get to a point where we have like true passionate consumer love, where consumers truly rely on the service and feel like this is a critical element of their life and they can't do without it. And we are truly able to empower like 1 million service professionals. And when I say empower, I mean, middle class livelihood for them, social security, partaking in the wealth creation that the company is doing, upskilling, opportunities for their kids. I think these two are sort of very definingly close to my heart. Hard to pick one, but if I had to pick like one, it would just be like fanatic consumer love. I don't think we have. I think we're making strides towards services and products that can get there. You have our new water purifier installed. That's been made with a lot of love and heart. I think some of these new services that we're trying out, I think we're iterating on it, but we're far away. And I think that for me is the benchmark. Yeah, that's it.
Okay. We're going to have a couple more questions and then we'll open it up for discussion. How is consumer behavior changing in India? We talk about premiumization, kind of share of wallet that you want to grab. What are you seeing as the tangible changes in consumer behavior?
I'll tell you the consumer segment that I'm most bullish about and how I think that consumer segment is going to behave. So I'm most bullish about sort of what I would call the emergent middle class in India. These are households where the household income is between 10 to 25, 30 lakhs per annum. So not necessarily India A, which is folks who are above 30 lakhs per annum, and typically like the first go-to point for any consumer company, but call it India B, which is 10 to 30 lakhs per annum. This is already a very large segment. This is about 25 to 30 million households in the country. I think this is the one that's going to really, really grow. I think this is the one where as India grows, a lot of new consumers will get added. This consumer segment, in my view, will fanatically seek absolute value. And value means durable, quality products at very affordable prices. So I actually think a lot of other things that actually do not matter. For example, like getting your marketing and branding right. Unpopular opinion, but I think to build a very, very large business in India, as long as you get that valuable product out there, the market will suck it. This is not necessarily true for other markets, which are more mature. But I think in India, that emergent middle class will become very large and they will remain very value conscious because of where they come from and their habits. And they will very quickly gravitate towards sort of products and solutions and services that are truly delivering lots and lots of value for every rupee that they spend.
So just on that, you talked about value, price, quality.
Yeah, value for me is slightly
not cheapest.
Different from price.
So your cooler, your water purifier is not the cheapest. There are probably cheaper, like Kent is maybe cheaper, or I don't know exactly, but Indigo is not the cheapest airline, but it's a great value proposition,
Correct.
right? So I think you're trying to find that balance.
So our water purifier, it's a good example that you take. So over the big, apart from like really looking cool and being smart and everything, our primary value proposition is that it needs no servicing for 2 years.
That's a killer expense. Right?
Unlike other water purifiers which need servicing every 6 to 9 months. And we actually made it in a way that it doesn't need servicing for 3 years. That's why we're going out there and saying 2. We know that it should be able to go on for at least 2.5, if not 3 years. That means that over the 8 to 10 year life cycle of that water purifier, your total cost of ownership is about half. Now, this is not a point that it'll not be very easy for the Indian, like 20 years of marketing saying that your water purifier needs servicing. It's not going to be very easy for us to land. We won't be able to do it unless we have a very, very sharp wedge. And a very, very clear value proposition that we think will be a killer. And every time we spoke to consumers across income brackets, the one big pain point we heard was, why is it that I need to, like, the hassle and the money that gets spent every few months in getting these filter changes done? I don't know why this is needed. Initially we ignored it. We felt that this is how the industry is. We can't change it, until we could not ignore it anymore. By the way, a lot of our early customers who bought it are not necessarily very high-end homes. When I've gone to those homes, and this is why, spending that time with consumers is important. These are very normal, ordinary middle-class homes that are getting this water purifier. So I'm very bullish on, like, the emergent middle class. I think if basically my bet is that in 10 years that will be the largest segment. Like that, 30 million people will be 100 million households. 30 million households will go to 100 million households.
Okay. In the spirit of a rapid fire round, investor or founder, which one do you think is more fun? Which one is easier?
I think investor is definitely easier and more fun. Like,
I'm not going to argue that. Okay.
But obviously, like, I'm a founder, so my heart is with founders.
Starting up in the 20s or starting up in the 30s?
Starting up in the 20s. Sooner the better.
Yep. Valuation or raising a round at the right time?
Definitely the latter.
Okay. Who is more difficult to manage, customers or employees?
Customers.
The weirdest service request received at Urban Company?
We've had many weird service requests. The weirdest was, and I again won't name the angel investor, but one of my angel investors had suggested to me that this was the time when we had those 70, 80 services. So we were basically thinking of what new services to add. And the gentleman in question suggested that we should, maybe it was actually a good idea, but the gentleman in question, so I'll give you two. So the gentleman in question suggested that we should have personal stylists who will basically go with you to shop for you and change the way you look and feel. And he said it will be very popular on Twitter, and the Twitterati will really appreciate it. Thankfully, we never got around to launching that. And we also had, for a very short duration, a fairly illustrious board member who suggested that we should have this jugaad technician who's capable of just doing anything. And he said that basically the instruction given to the guy is, Punjabi guys, he said कि बस काम करके आइयो, वापस मत आइयो अगर काम नहीं हुआ तो. That's it. Just send these jugaad technicians who will do anything in your house and बस करके आना उसको.
I love it.
So yeah. Right. But both amazing partners to the company.
Nice. Favorite movie or book?
Favorite movie, I'll tell you one that I recently saw that I really liked. It's called Past Lives, like a Korean English movie. Very beautiful movie. I definitely encourage folks to watch it. And a book that I recently read, Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. I think that was a very, very deeply profound book.
Yeah. Do you have a role model?
Uday Kotak.
Why?
Seen him in close action in the CII National Council that I've been a part of for the last 4-5 years. Um, I think he's truly shown India how you can create very, very large scale outcomes and large scale wealth in an ethical manner with solid corporate governance, solid institution building, with teams that are, in a culture that promotes meritocracy. I'm amazed at how Kotak will have folks who've been there for 15 years,
That's
20
true.
years. Look at their banking team. They have the best banking team, iBanking team in the country,
Yeah.
hands down, and they can compete and win against some of the biggest global bulge bracket banks. It is not easy to have that kind of institution building journey that he has undertaken. He is also an extraordinarily intelligent person who has very deep thought processes on many topics outside of financial services as well, and I've seen some of that in close quarters during government consultations. I think just a really well-rounded, humble, role model entrepreneur, I would say, in terms of what he's created. And I think India just needs so many more of companies like Kotak and entrepreneurs like Mr. Uday Kotak.
Last question. Most exciting milestone that Urban Company has had so far?
I'd say looking back, I think COVID was like a very defining period for the company. Because we really could have gone one of two ways. We could have gone very sideways and not capitalized on the opportunity that COVID presented and been very conservative. Or, I think what we ended up doing was actually be very aggressive, yet very customer first in terms of the protocols, etc. We onboarded partners during that period quite aggressively, which allowed us to gain share over our industry. I think it was a fairly defining period for the company. Lots of ups and downs, starts and stops, but we really came together as a team. And I think at the end of COVID, the leadership team, which is today the core leadership team at UC, it got very cemented. Most of us said, okay, this is it. Like, we really have to make this company a large, shining company over the next decade. So I think it was a very defining and sort of inflection point for the company in many ways.
Got it. Okay. Superb. Thank you. That was absolutely amazing. We're going to leave it open for a few questions now. So, yeah, we have people ready. If you can just identify yourself and ask your question.
Do I stand up? Do I keep sitting?
You can, whatever you prefer.
Hi guys, I'm Akash. I'm the founder of a company called Bella Vita. It's a perfume company. Raj, just a quick question. The biggest mantra or a hack that you could share that simplified professionalizing the supply side? Because, the biggest challenge I think in your business would have been how to make the supply professional, the cleaners, the beauticians, etc. So what worked? You must have done loads of experiments. What worked the best to professionalize them?
I think what really ended up working for us was a design choice that we made around that 1 to 2 year mark, which is to only work with the last mile individual and align his or her incentives with the incentives of the customer and the marketplace. This industry is actually fraught with lots of middlemen. It'll be very hard for you to tell that these are middlemen because they will disguise themselves as small business owners, local contractors, aggregators, thekedar, shop owners, salon owners. But they are not the last mile that actually goes and delivers the service. They will eat margins from the supply chain, and they will run inefficient sub-supply chains within themselves. That choice of saying, and middlemen will find themselves onto marketplaces all the time. After all these years, we do not, we go to a real estate site, we find brokers. So it is fairly difficult for a marketplace to cut off that middleman also, because when you want supply rapidly, the middlemen are giving you liquidity on the supply side. So it's very easy to fall for that trap. We made that call, and we had to go through 2-3 years of painful weeding out, because they would keep coming back in some shape and form. Today, 100%, or let's not say 100%, but 99.9% of the supply that we have is that lone individual who's actually going and delivering the service. Consequently, this individual keeps 75 to 80% of what the customer pays and ends up making between 30 to 40,000 rupees a month net. And we publish these earnings transparently on our website. So this is net of all commissions, fee, travel costs and product costs. That's the biggest delta, because that 30 to 40,000 is 2x of their opportunity cost. As a gig economy player, our annual churn on the supply side is between 15 to 20%, and 70% of that is involuntary, which is people don't want to leave, they have to leave because they've fallen below the quality threshold. So if I de-average for the quality related churn, the real voluntary churn is in single digit, because the earnings is just remarkable. And so most of you who've used the service, if you've ended up speaking to the service professional, you would have probably heard this, and many of them would have said that joining Urban Company was not just like a good thing, like it was like a life-changing event in their life. So delivering that earnings delta, in my view, aligns all the, like, then you have to enable through training, you have to enable through tooling, you have to enable through the right products, through social security. But the starting point assumption has to be that the individual is eager, is aspirational, wants to earn more, and is willing to put in the effort. And my experience is that is true. That starting point assumption is true. I think all of them are young, aspiring Indians, part of middle class. They want to work hard. They want to be professionals. They want to earn a good middle class. They just need the opportunity. And it's up to entrepreneurs like us to create those opportunities for them. When I had started in Urban Company in the industry, I had also assumed that the challenge is these people just don't want to work, or they don't want to be professional. No, nobody can be professional at 12,000 rupees a month. It's hard to expect somebody to show up without body odor, with absolutely spick and span, uniforms, looking great and doing professional work, and then walking home with 12,000 rupees a month. But pay them 40 and you'll start seeing the difference, or pay them 30 and you'll start seeing the difference. So I think the assumption that they want to work hard is a very fundamental assumption we made. We aligned only with individuals as a marketplace choice. It served us well.
More questions? Please.
The biggest risk on the supply side? I guess the biggest risk for a marketplace like us is the risk of disintermediation, which is that they basically have a direct relationship with the consumer and cut off the marketplace going forward. How we've tackled it, and we haven't been able to perfectly solve it, still happens, but it's certainly come down dramatically over the years, and we're able to fairly accurately track it through our forensics. I think we took a principled approach early on that we will solve this problem by adding value on both sides of the marketplace, versus creating barriers to not allow them to disintermediate. And for us, those value levers were quite simple. On the supply side, it was much better utilization, much better earnings, and a career path, because somebody who's earning 30,000 rupees a month today is not satisfied with it. They want to earn 40, they want to earn 50. So we've created career paths in each category. Eventually, when you straddle through all our levels, and we have typically 3 to 4 levels of service professionals in every category, you can end up becoming a trainer, full-time trainer on the platform. About 60% of our trainers come from our own supply fleet. So I think the career progression, the better utilization and earnings, some of the safety measures that we have over time taught and made the supply side realize that they're just better off going through the marketplace. vis-a-vis going. And many of them who try to disintermediate also come back and tell us that they realize it's just not worth it. You know, they would not get the full price from the consumer because the consumer is only disintermediating because they want a discount, but now they also have to manage something on the side. They have a lot of last minute cancellations and offline bookings because the consumer no longer respects your time as much as they do when you come through Urban Company. And a last minute cancellation is 100% of the earnings lost, right? Because you can't replace it magically with another job last minute. So a lot of that happens in India. So I think a lot of things on the supply side, equally on the consumer side. You know, making sure we're more on demand. Quality control is better. We have warranty systems. We have a membership program called UC Plus. So the philosophy, I mean, I can go into more details, but the philosophy has been simple. Don't try to prevent it. If it is happening, that means the marketplace is not adding value. So go back to the drawing board and figure out how you can add more and more value so that the two sides of the marketplace organically choose to go through the marketplace for every transaction. Because in India, you can't prevent people. I mean, you can create all the barriers and they'll figure out like a work around it and they'll go around it. So that's always been the biggest risk. It continues to be a risk and or a challenge, whatever you want to call it. And we continue to attack it with this philosophy.
Before we are from Checo, you know, so how do you, for example, define PMF for a category? You know, let's say you have multiple categories. And secondly, I think two part is that has your definition of PMF changed for yourself over the period of the last couple of years?
Very, very good question. I can give you an answer that is slightly more specific to like consumer marketplaces. Let's try and see if it can be extrapolated to other categories as well. In a consumer internet marketplace, I think it's very it's pretty clear what PMF is. PMF, the hygiene factors of PMF are smiling consumer cohorts, or at the minimum retained consumer cohorts which flatline and asymptote to the x-axis at a reasonably large gap. So if your cohorts are going all the way to zero eventually, then you don't have PMF. That I think is bare minimum hygiene. The second I would say is the percentage of new users and new suppliers who are joining the marketplace organically. Ideally, you would like 100% of your supply side to come organically, or at least 80%. And I'd say the minimum threshold for new users coming organically on the consumer side should be 50%. So if that balance hasn't tilted in favor of word of mouth and organic, and if it's still driven by marketing, paid marketing, etc., then you're not a marketplace. Like you're actually running like a sort of glorified arbitrage marketing engine, which is able to sort of do better marketing than the smaller businesses that you are having on the supply side and taking a cut in the middle. But you never really see those true profit pools kick in because the tilt to the organic hasn't happened. So these are two like hygiene factors in my view. But as an entrepreneur, the gut factor is a very simple one. Is the market pulling your product, or are you pushing it? Like, do you really have to work hard to sell it, or are you really working hard to build it? And we've done so many categories. I've been through so many phases of categories where it's all about selling, and then phases in categories where it's just about scampering to get supply. And it's always very clear to me in hindsight which one had PMF and which one didn't have PMF. So if you're working really, really, really hard on selling, you likely don't have PMF. Because in India, consumer side, I'm not talking about B2B. B2B is a very different business. Consumer side businesses, like the market should pull. So go back and spend that energy on the product.
Last question before we head over for dinner.
There's no one.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So, of course, what you have built is simply amazing. We use it almost every month. For particularly what you say, the bathroom services we use almost on weekly basis. Living here nearby in Gurgaon, So you rightly said, of course, about PMF, and you said, the retention has been. So what kind of, do you have an incentive, or how do you retain those supply side people, particularly when something good is going to
The party is officially begun.
Yeah. So basically, what you do and what specific things you did for your last mile people who go at places and they do not drift away. Do you have an incentive structure for them, or you have, when you say a career path, how do you actually ensure a career path for them?
Yeah, so when this individual service professional joins us, typically they are coming from a fairly unorganized ecosystem where they've been earning like 12,000-15,000 rupees a month. Many of them don't even have bank accounts when they join us. They have undergone little to no formal training, and at this point in time, about a third of the people who are joining us are freshers, so they don't even have background in the trade. So the first set of investments that we have to do is really training and upskilling them. And a lot of this training is technical, but it's also soft skills training. It's training into sort of how do you present yourself, how do you groom yourself, how do you talk confidently with a customer, how do you deal with irate customers, etc., etc. So it's a fairly transformative training program that is compressed because we don't have all the time in the world, and training costs are expensive. So it can be anywhere from 10 days to 2 months. That's the average duration of training. Once they're trained, we spend a lot of time in making sure that they're successful on the ground. So this is classroom training. We augment it with on-job training and initial hand-holding in success. So we try to set up the individual for as much success as possible. Immediately after going live, in a month, they'll see those earnings kick in. And that earnings delta is typically fairly solid. So they go from 12,000-15,000 to making about 30,000-35,000 a month. And that's a good boost for them, because now they can change very quickly. They start seeing changes in their lifestyle, their social strata, etc. Then we have very defined milestones. So if you hit a milestone of ratings and certain time spent, we will quickly upgrade you to the next level, and then you'll undergo another set of trainings to be ready for the next level. And when you go to the next level, you earn more. So you typically will see about a 25 to 30% jump in your earnings. And like this, we have defined 3 to 4 levels. Sometimes they're aligned to what consumers see. Sometimes they're not necessarily aligned to what consumers see. But that earnings can stretch up from about 30,000 to start with to as high as about 60 to 70,000 over those 3 to 4 levels. This is good because it's not just everyday incentives that people are looking forward to. Just like you and me, when we work, our employees work in a company, it's not just everyday earnings. They are also looking for career progression. What we've realized is service professionals are no different at all. They are seeing this as a profession. They also want to progress in their profession. They want to invest in themselves. They want to see a company that is investing in them and investing in their long-term growth. That, I think, has been one of the biggest. So today's retention is solved by today's income. Long-term retention is solved by seeing a career path in the company. And they see trainers, and they see senior trainers and national trainers who started off as service professionals. So it gives them a lot of confidence that one day they could also be a regional trainer, a national trainer on the payroll of urban companies. So they did that sort of aspiration building. Beyond that, you have to augment with all other enablers. If they need a vehicle loan, it should be available through the platform. If they need a personal loan, it should be available through the platform. If they need a home loan, it should be available through the platform. If they need, if they meet with an accident and they get admitted, their insurances should be fully taken care of. Kids need scholarship. And so there's so many other things that you can do to augment and enable, better productivity, better working on the platform. But central is, in my view, earnings and career progression.